Part 5. Pirate's Bounty Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 41. What a group of tireless guys Shung. Luogu yawned, and didn't intend to meet Mei Li and his group. To put it bluntly, meeting is nothing more than two possibilities. First, Mei Li has already learned the truth from Kaya, and she came here to help. But now that Crow has been taken down, they can't help much after they come, and they don't plan to eat and drink here. So, it's better not to see you. The second is that Mei Li still insists that Crow is a good person and he is a pirate. Then there is no need to meet. Even if these guys who don't know right from wrong are killed, Luogu won't feel any guilt. However, if you cut them off, you won't get any money, so it's not worth it. At best, it is the sense of accomplishment of defeating the opponent, but the problem is that after killing a group of villagers, there is a sense of accomplishment. Immediately, he changed direction, accelerated his speed, and got away before Mei Li and his party were about to see him. Half an hour later, Rogu carried Captain Crow to the beach, where he parked his boat. However, from a distance, Luogu saw several figures. No way. There are people guarding here. Luogu was a little helpless. The reason why he took half an hour to come here was also because the village was under martial law and it took him a little time to get around. As a result, even his own boat is guarded now. That would be too much. But after getting close, it was only then that they could clearly see the appearance of these people. One is Usopp, and there are 3 children. Standing in the middle is a weak girl in a coat, Miss Kaya. When Luogu saw them, they also saw Luogu. When they met each other, Usopp stood in front of Kaya without saying a word. Don't worry, as long as I, Usopp, am here, no one can hurt you. When he said this, if his legs didn't tremble, it would obviously add a lot of persuasiveness. In comparison, those 3 children were braver, standing by the side and grinning at Luogu. Luogu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What are you doing here? Still don't believe me? To reveal the true face of Crow, for Luogu, it is actually a matter of passing by. At that time, he captured Kaya and used it to lure Crow. The Crow people came, and by the way, let Kaya know the general idea, and it was not troublesome for him, so he did it. It's just that the image of Captain Crow's butler is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people, so you still don't believe it? No, it's not. Kaya came out from behind Usopp, and glanced at Captain Crow, who was held by Rogu on his shoulders, with complicated eyes. Smiling softly, she really looked like a sick 11-za. She said softly, actually, if you can come back here, it already shows that you are not a pirate. What's more, there is that conversation between you. If I still can't tell who is a good person and who if it's a bad guy, that's too. After thinking for a long time, I found that I didn't know what words to use to describe it. Luogu added to her, idiot. Yeah, that's too idiotic. After Kaya finished speaking, her face turned red. She would never say such words in normal times. Luogu said indifferently, now that I know, why stop me? Or are you planning to beat this guy up and take revenge? If there is really a need for this, it's not impossible, but don't beat him to death. I have to take it in exchange for money. After all, this guy is quite special. If it's just a corpse, I'm worried that the Navy will not accept it. Nearly 3 years ago, Captain Crow escaped his shell with the trick of the cicada, making the Navy think he was dead. If Luogu went there with the head alone, it was obviously not convincing, and he was very suspected of defrauding the bounty. But if it's a lively Captain Crow, that's another matter. No. That's not the case, Kaya said quickly. Actually, I just want to thank you. Thank me. Luogu saw that they really didn't seem to have any malicious intentions, so he walked over to the bow, and threw Captain Luogu out of the boat as if throwing garbage, then smiled and said to Kaya, how can I thank you? What? Kaya was stunned for a moment. How can I thank you? Can't I thank you sincerely? In other words, thank you really needs a gift? Seeing her hooded appearance, Logogu rubbed her face amusedly. I think, if you have time, it's better not to lie down all the time, and have a good communication with people when you have nothing to do. Ah. Oh, I, I see. Kaya lowered her head as if she had done something wrong. Rogu jumped into his boat and set his sights on Usopp. When looking at him, Logogu's eyes became more sincere. Hey, boy, if you go to sea one day, be as careful as possible. Meeting me too early may end your career prematurely. What? Usopp was stunned, then patted his chest and said, how could the great pirate Usopp be defeated by a mere pirate hunter? I hope you can keep this ambition. Logogu pointed to the rope and said, help me untie it. Oh, Usopp hurried over and untied the rope. The boat sailed leisurely into the sea. Kaya suddenly asked loudly from the bank, Sir, you haven't said your name yet. Noro's Rogu. While rowing the boat, Logogu said, Pirate Hunter. Pirate Hunter. After hearing what Rogu added, Kaya muttered to herself, and looked back at Usopp, is there anything, a story about the Pirate Hunter? What? Usopp was still immersed in Rogu's words, and he couldn't react when he heard this. After reacting, he was even more confused. In this world, there are stories about pirates, stories about navies, stories about monsters in the sea, and magnificent adventures, but, it seems that I have never heard the story about a pirate hunter. Even if there is, it is not a guy with a glorious image. But fortunately, making something out of nothing has always been Usopp's strength. After a few seconds, he returned to normal and said with a natural expression, a pirate hunter? Of course, then let me tell you about when I was 5 years old. The story of the duel with the pirate hunter king in the Sea of Abyss, at that time. They walked back slowly amidst Usopp's voice. While listening to Usopp's bragging, Kaya secretly replaced the image of the pirate hunter king on Logogu's body. He pursed his lips lightly, and when Usopp said how he beat up the pirate hunter king, he couldn't help but whispered, bragging. Ah. Kaya, what did you say? It's nothing. There was a wind blowing, and Kaya followed the wind to look for it, but there was only blue sky and white clouds. I suddenly thought, is becoming a pirate hunter also a very great thing? Pirate's bounty don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 42. Silence. Cold. Hungry. Damn it. Zhang rubbed his belly with the remaining strength. I haven't eaten for 7 days. We will die here, right? Boogie and Sam had been desperate, since that loaf of bread, that damned pirate hunter had really given them a meal. And in the next few days, although it doesn't matter if you are full, you can at least have a meal. But after they told everything about Captain Crow, only water remained every day. Die. The sneer on the corner of Zhang mouth looked dry. How could he die? Haven't you noticed? The Catman brothers glanced at Zhang with lifeless eyes. He didn't speak, mainly because he didn't have the strength to speak, but the doubt in his eyes was still obvious. The boat stopped. Zhang looked at the ceiling above his head. The cells built by the vicious pirate hunters were too strong. Even the ceiling above his head was sealed with iron. He is facing Captain Crow, that terrible Captain Crow. The boat stopped, which means that guy has arrived at Syrup village. And once he really appeared in front of the captain, there is only one result waiting for him, and that is, death. The Cat brothers looked at each other, and there was a rare light of hope in their eyes. After the captain kills that bastard, can we be rescued? The Catman brothers asked hopefully. Zhang Gao was taken aback, then fell silent. Hard to say. If it was that person, maybe he would come? Before his plan was disrupted. But if there are too many deviations and accidents, even if he finds him, it may be to kill himself to vent his anger, right? Thinking of this, Zhang Jiao, who was still hopeful, suddenly became even more desperate. Click. There was the sound of a lock being unlocked from above. Coming. Zhang Jiao and the Catman brothers were refreshed at the same time. As the footsteps approached, the three of them stared at the stairs with 6 pairs of eyes. Then I saw Luogu, and Captain Crow, who was tied up like a caterpillar. 3 dumbfounded faces appeared in Luogu's field of vision at the same time. Yo, Luogu said with a smile, the captain you missed is back, aren't you happy? I'm speechless, this is different from what I thought. Zango opened his mouth wide and pressed his chin on the floor. Crow, Captain. Captain Crow had already woken up, but he couldn't move at all. He reluctantly turned his head and glanced at Zhang Jiao. The ferocity and viciousness in his eyes nearly made Zhang Jiao cry. It turns out it's you. Captain Crow feels so hateful. If he had known that Luogu had already captured these 3 people, would he still be fooled? He boasted of hundreds of plans, but was easily deceived by a ridiculous guy. This was even more unacceptable to Crow than the defeat. The door of the cell was opened, and Rogu threw Crow inside. Speaking of which, it's really annoying if you're busy alone. Luogu clapped his hands. This kind of miscellaneous work has to be done by myself, which is very inconvenient. Glancing at the entire cell, he smiled again, but hard work always pays off, and you are my harvest. After closing the cell door, Luogu glanced at the 3 guys who were about to starve to death, and walked over to push the door open. Zhang Jiao and the others immediately struggled to stand up, but halfway through the attempt, they knelt down with a plop. Luogu nodded with satisfaction, then held his chin and looked at the 3 people. He was hesitating. Originally, Luogu would not have any hesitation about pirates. However, the appearance of the falling room made Luogu think about how to use it. Captain Crow's unique skills are already obvious. The silent step, the spoon, and the 10-finger blade are the advanced products of the claws of the Cat brothers. Among them, silent step Luogu is most interested. The spoon is more like a semi-finished product. It is very uncomfortable that he can't even decide his own goal while moving at high speed. As for the 3 guys in front of me, they are all qualified to catch them. However, the ability of the Catman brothers is very weak, and Luogu is completely indifferent. That is to say, he is still a little interested in Zhang Jiao's hypnotism, but not much. Therefore, whether or not to throw Zhang Jiao into this current prison cell is a question. It's really troublesome. Luogu glanced at Zhang Jiao. I'd like to ask you something. What? After hearing this, Zhang Jiao's first reaction was, would you like something to eat? Here Luogu said, apart from hypnotism, do you know anything else? Drop ring. Zhang Jiao said uncertainly. Luogu curled his lips a little bored. Forget it, it's up to you. Squat down, choose, and then the chain rose out of thin air, and with a clang, Zango was tightly wrapped, with a head exposed, and a dazed face. Then Luogu picked it up and threw it into Captain Crow's cell. I'll give you something to eat later. What he promised, Luogu would not break his promise. As for the Catman brothers, dealing with them is actually more troublesome, because they really can't be handed over to the Navy for a while. Luogu planned to use them as cushions. After 5 pirates with good skills were imprisoned in the sinking room, he would catch 5 ordinary pirates and put them into exchange for a sinking key. A guy like the Catman brother who has no skills and has the qualifications to capture is the best choice. So they have to stay on Luogu's boat and in the cell for a while, and it will be their turn after Luogu gathers the 5 people in the cell in front. Forget it, let's find a town to unload first. Glancing at Captain Crow and Zhang Jiao next to him, Rogu smiled. He had already seen Xiaoqianqian waving to him. 1 week later, Luogu was standing on the street of a small town, carrying big bags of money in his hands. The total amount of money in his hand is 100,270,000 million, which has not yet been recorded in the account, but the current wealth in the account is already. After handing over a group of clowns to Keith, Luogu had million in his account. After throwing Captain Crow and Zhang Jiao into the fall, Luogu had million in his account, plus that's million. Add the million given by the Navy into the account, that's million. It's so rich. Luogu stood at the door, looked at the sky and said with emotion. In fact, before he brought Crow, he was a little worried. After all, a pirate who had been dead for several years suddenly appeared like this. Do people recognize him or not? The result turned out to be recognized. The reason turned out to be that some time ago, there was a problem with the Navy that ended Captain Crow. For this reason, many things have begun to be reconsidered. After Rogu showed up with the real Captain Crow, he brought new clues and content to the Navy. Oh, by the way, that marine is called Monka. However, Luogu didn't really care about this kind of thing, as long as he could get the money, he would be fine. Just as he was walking to his boat with the money in hand, two unexpected guests appeared in front of him. You are the pirate hunter, Noros Rogu. The two spoke coldly, with fierce eyes. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate's Bounty Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 43. Appeared. Finally appeared. Luogu looked at them, and for some reason, he was so excited that he almost burst into tears. How many times? How many times already? The two people on the opposite side looked at each other, confused. What the hell? I finally met a highway robber. Luogu pointed out, you saw the money in my hand and were planning to rob it, right? The two people opposite were dumbfounded and quickly shook their heads and waved their hands. Luogu completely ignored, come on. Let me see what you guys are capable of. You don't even look for a small alley, but just block the road on the street and rob. Keep it in your eyes. Ah, robbery, you. Before he could finish his sentence, a huge fist had already arrived in front of him. There was a muffled bang, his head hit the ground, and he was foaming at the mouth. When the other person saw this, he was startled at first, then his legs bent slightly, and he pressed one hand on the handle of the knife. Damn it. The voice fell, and he rushed forward, the light of the knife skipped across the void, and he shouted angrily, look at me. Bang. One foot was already covering his face, and he fell to the ground when he stepped on his face. When he took his feet away, the man on the ground had a crooked mouth and squinting eyes, and he muttered to himself, it's just a slight difference. It seems to be a lot worse. Luogu scratched his head, you are so weak, you still want to block the road and rob? Go, you are already my bounty. Ah, the two struggled quickly, but Luogu grabbed their necks one by one and went to the naval station. Wait, you misunderstood. We are not pirates, we are pirate hunters just like you. Pirate hunter. Luogu stopped in his footsteps, looked at the two strangely, and muttered thoughtfully, no wonder I didn't see the 4 lines. Without 4 lines, there is obviously no bounty, and without a bounty there is no value. Luogu sighed, is it so difficult these days? Pirate hunters don't go to catch pirates, they start to block the way. We do not have. The two answered loudly in unison. Although their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen, they looked inexplicably energetic. You said no. Luogu was furious, took out the Arita brand iron rod and banged it on the ground. Just now you said, ah, I'll rob you. I mean, ah, robbery. You misunderstood. But you won't let me finish. The person who said this before really burst into tears. Ah, Luogu scratched his head, then why are you so vicious? When these two guys blocked him just now, they were very ferocious, with hideous faces and weapons, which was not a good idea no matter how you looked at it. Meeting the legendary pirate hunter, I'm a little nervous. Is it wrong if you don't know how to put your emotions down? The more they talked, the more aggrieved they became, and they couldn't help crying. Looking at the two crying men, Luogu sighed, "Forget it, keep crying." He was still a little disappointed. As a person who often reads novels, he can always see that kind of short-sighted thief robbing the powerful male protagonist in the alley. I thought I had encountered it so easily, but it turned out to be a misunderstanding. Have the people in pirate world obeyed the law to this extent? They don't even give me a chance to punish rape and eliminate evil. As he walked, he muttered. And many more. When the voice came from behind, I found that the two guys who were crying in each other's arms just now cheered up again. Why, Luogu wondered, especially why would there be pirate hunters blocking him at the entrance of the naval station? We. The two pirate hunters muttered, as if they were very ashamed to speak. In the end, Luogu was full of doubts, and knelt down in front of Luogu with a plop, grabbed the ground with his head, and put his forehead on the ground, and said loudly, "We want to follow you, boss." Luogu looked at them, and after a while he was moved. Huh. In the tavern. With a bang, a pirate hunter slammed his wine glass on the table and said loudly, "Have fun." Then there was another sound, and another pirate hunter also smashed his wine glass on the table. Sure enough, the only way to drink is the most comfortable. Luogu feasted on it. Today's crab meat is really good, and the owner of this bar is also good, reminding Luogu of Cindy. After finishing the meal, Luogu looked up at the two of them. "What's your name?" Luogu was actually quite curious about the two people who appeared suddenly and planned to follow him. After all, in this world where there are very few pirate hunters, very few people are willing to be the subordinates of other hunters. "Boss, my name is Johnny." "Boss, my name is Joseph." The two people immediately corrected their attitudes. "We are targeting pirates and earning a bounty, group duo." So stupid. Luogu looked at the two people with vacant eyes, but when their names were mentioned, Luogu was somewhat impressed. I remember that in the original book, when Luffy beat Eren, there were indeed two hunters watching the gate at the door. It should be these two guys, right? Thinking of this, he lightly tapped the table with his fingers, while switching his eyes back and forth between the faces of the two. The two pirate hunters suddenly sat upright, sweat dripping from their nervous foreheads. It seemed that Luogu's eyes were like knives, dissecting them bit by bit. After a while, Luogu asked, "Why did you find me?" Johnny spoke first. "Boss, don't you know your current fame?" "Am I famous?" Luogu was also surprised. Tell me. "Ever since you captured big pirates such as Bucky the Clown and Misiro, your reputation has skyrocketed in the East China Sea. You are known as the most powerful pirate hunter in the East China Sea for the past 20 years. Luogu nodded in satisfaction. "Is there any more?" The two looked at each other and shook their heads together. "No more." The corner of Luogu's mouth twitched. "Is it gone now? Isn't it said that the reputation is great? The result was the most powerful pirate hunter in 20 years. That's it? Let's talk about it for 100 years, right? What the hell is 20 years? Gently patted his forehead, Luogu glanced at the two guys again, and asked, "Can you cook?" The two nodded together, but nodded hesitantly. Luogu asked again, "Do you know how to sail?" The two nodded together, this time very quickly, like chickens eating rice. "Can you do everything on the boat?" The two nodded again, and said, "We are familiar with each other." "Okay, then you guys come." Luogu said, "It's just a trial period. If you want to formally join the group, you have to take me to a place first." Pirate's Bounty, Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 44. Really? Did you really agree to let us join? Johnny and Joseph looked at Luogu with excitement. Da Chung. Luogu nodded and emphasized, probation period. Awesome. Johnny, we have finally taken a solid step towards our goal of becoming a powerful pirate hunter. Joseph, in the near future, our name will resound throughout the East China Sea. The meaning of life at this moment has already made me want to burst into tears. We are no longer a hair's breadth away. The two shouted loudly, then hugged each other and wept, tears streaming down their faces again. Luogu looked bored, so he ordered another lunch. Halfway through the meal, the two finally remembered the business, and asked together, "Boss, where do you want us to take you?" "Well, there is one called Aaron's Domain, or Along Paradise. Do you know where it is?" Luogu raised his head from the meal with difficulty, and then saw two stone sculptures. Looking at this and that, Luogu felt that these two guys seemed to have completely froze. Their expressions were exaggerated, their mouths were wide open, their eyes protruded, their faces were pale, and they remained motionless. "What's wrong with you?" Rogu asked. Then, seeing Johnny and Joseph turning around together, Johnny murmured, "Joseph, we have already taken a solid step towards becoming a great pirate hunter, right?" "Yes, Johnny." Joseph cried and said, "But why, I feel that we may be waving to death." Cough cough, Luogu coughed, "You sigh slowly. Then head down to eat?" "No, boss." Johnny turned around quickly, "Why do you want to go to a place like Aaron's Domain?" "Yes, that guy is a big pirate with a bounty of million, and he is the most evil existence in the entire East China Sea." When Joseph talked about this big pirate, he seemed to be trembling. "Well, you have already mentioned the reason," Luogu said, 20 million. Johnny and Joseph looked at each other, and they both noticed the blankness in each other's eyes. Of course million is good, but the million in hand is money. If you die early, you will have nothing. In the end, the two of them nodded together and decided that the boss must give up this unrealistic idea. After all, it's really not worthwhile to challenge that kind of scary guy just for money. However, before he could speak, Luogu had already stood up, went to the bar to settle the meal and drink bills, and then said to the two people, "You don't want to go?" We. Boss." Johnny and Joseph looked at each other again, but they were speechless after all. Luogu grinned, "It doesn't matter. How about this? I'll treat you to a drink and you tell me how to get to Aaron's Domain." "Do you really want to go?" Johnny gritted his teeth and said, "I can take you there." Luogu came to him with a smile, and patted him on the shoulder lightly. "Not everyone who sails on the sea is mentally prepared. But when you have a choice, just choose. Don't choose things that force yourself. Because even if you do that kind of thing, you won't get any good results in the end. Tell me, the position of Aaron's Domain, and then, isn't it good to say goodbye?" These two people are different from those pirates caught by Luogu. They were bounty hunters. Rogu couldn't sell them to the navy when needed. Once they truly became his subordinates, he would be responsible for many things after that. Rogu will definitely challenge powerful opponents and capture powerful pirates again and again. And a mere Aaron will stop them from moving forward. Once they enter the Great Route, they will definitely find it difficult to move forward. Rather than regretting it at that time, it is better to let them extinguish this thought now. Of course, the most important thing is that they have made it very clear just now that their goal is only to become famous in the East China Sea, but Luogu is different. Luogu may not particularly want fame, but he must reach the top of the world. After all, if you don't have that kind of power, how can you find the ultimate secret treasure in this world where monsters are rampant? A smile appeared on Luogu's lips and he waved to the shore. At this moment, the sun was still setting and there were two people standing on the shore, waving at Luogu blankly. Luogu put down his hand, and opened a navigation chart in his hand, which was given to him by the two Johnny brothers. According to the map, he could find Aaron's domain. And it's not too far from Aaron's domain here, it takes about 3 days' journey to get there. Well, everything went well. Holding the navigation chart, he turned around and looked at the empty ship. Luogu scratched his head, it's really not popular. Therefore, at the beginning, when Johnny and Joseph expressed their willingness to follow, Rogu really planned to accept them. It was just obvious that they were not ready to become Luogu's subordinates. And on the shore, looking at the ship entering the sea from a distance, the two people, who looked like stone sculptures, put down their aching arms. Looking at each other in a daze, Johnny murmured, "In the end, it's still a hair's breadth away." "It's a lot worse," Joseph said. "Johnny, do you think we are really ready to make a name for ourselves in this sea?" "Why do you say such things all of a sudden?" Johnny asked. "Just now, what Luogu said just now made me suddenly feel that we are still too far behind." Joseph looked at the big ship that seemed to be blending into the sunset. "It's so far, even if someone says that we are the strongest hunters in the East China Sea, we dare not accept it." "Joseph." Johnny looked at him, then lowered his head silently. "I understand what you mean. It's as if we dare not go to Aaron at all, but Luogu can easily embark on the journey when he grows up." Joseph said, "We are still far behind. We can only try our best to improve, and when we encounter a choice again, we can really say I will take you there. Damn it." Johnny hugged his head and cried, "In the final analysis, we are too weak. Not only is he weak, but he also lacks the courage to face a strong enemy." Joseph also cried with his head in his arms, "Otherwise, we would already be on that ship by now." Johnny suddenly wiped away his tears, "But, it doesn't matter." "Huh?" Joseph looked at Johnny. Johnny looked at the ship under the sunset, which was about to become a small black dot, and said loudly, "We have seen the courage and mind of a real pirate hunter. We didn't have a goal before, but now we have one. Yes, let's become a hunter like Luogu. When that day comes, we will follow Luogu's footsteps." Joseph also wiped away his tears and faced the setting Sunday. Pirate's Bounty Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 45. Luogu sat on the side of the boat with his legs crossed, one hand supporting his chin, and the other hand holding a huge fishing rod. From the pen end of the fishing rod, a rope hangs down to the surface of the sea. A man was tied to the rope, with his hands and feet tied to a 4-horse horse. It's Buji. Now he can see the sky without raising his head, and there is not much expression in his eyes, the tears have dried up. "Alala, I have been fishing all morning, and I can't catch a sea king." Luogu sighed and glanced weakly at Sam next to him. "Is this bait not good? Why don't you try it?" I'm too thin." Sam quickly said, "Sea kings, for such a thin bait like me, they will definitely not even take a look at it." "Hey." Luogu sighed and rubbed his belly. He had begun to miss the taste of Neptune meat. Last time, for some unknown reason, one popped out suddenly, and he cut off his head. Since then, no Neptunes have attacked the ship again. This made Luogu very lonely and sad. After he ate the last piece of sea king meat yesterday, he found that the effect of his exercise became half the result with twice the effort. Obviously, without sufficient nutrition, the effect of exercise would also become worse. It is precisely because of this that he began to think about trying to catch Neptunes in a whimsical way. If you want to catch a being like the Sea King, ordinary bait will definitely not work. Then he remembered that there seemed to be 2 prisoners in his cell who were waiting to eat with their mouths open every day. It can be regarded as waste utilization. Luogu is going to use the 2 of them to fish. But as a result, it didn't have any effect. If you want to catch sea kings, Sam blinked and said, "I know a place." "Oh? Let's hear it," Luogu asked with a smile. "If it's really a good place, then I'll let you go." "Really?" said Sam immediately. Have you ever heard of the quiet belt? The windless belt? Logogugzu looked at Sam with narrowed eyes. Yes, there are a lot of sea kings in the calm zone, Sam said. It is definitely the best place to catch sea kings. It's really a good place. Not only is it a good place, but that place is also the lair of sea kings, right? Luagu looked at Sam expressionlessly. I think one bait may not be enough. Sam turned pale. This guy actually knew. Luogu shook his hand, and Buletinji on the fishing rod swished back and landed on the boat. He looked around as if he had just woken up from a dream, and then saw Luogu, who looked like a devil. He held Sam's neck with one hand, walked up to him, and tied Sam to his body. The two of them were tied together, and Luogu was holding the fishing rod, and was about to throw it smartly, when he suddenly heard Sam saying in a hurry, "Land, land, land? Has Aaron's territory arrived?" Luogu was overjoyed immediately, threw the fishing rod on the ground casually, ran to the observation deck in twos and picked up the binoculars to observe. A peaceful village appeared in front of Luogu, but Aaron's domain was not seen. Kokoyasi village. Luogu thought for a while, then put down the binoculars and came down from the viewing platform. Capture the Cat brothers again, adjust the sails, and begin preparations for landing. While busy with these things, Luogu thought a lot. He thought of Cindy's words, Johnny and Joseph, who wanted to join the group. If I had known earlier, I would have tricked them here first, whether they were ready or not. It would have been better to be a handyman. Luogu sighed and steered the helm, adjusted the direction, and then climbed to the observation deck again to observe the angle and feel the wind speed. When all things have to be done by one person, this big ship can completely make people dizzy. 2 hours later, Luogu's boat slowly stopped. Throwing down the anchor, Luogu wiped the sweat from his brow. It can't be done. If this continues, the quality of life will be lost. Luogu decided to become a person with a good quality of life, not to let his quality of life drop just to catch pirates. So, we must recruit people on board, at worst, spend money to hire people. After complaining, he set his eyes on the land. This is Kikyoksi village? Where is the village? Luogu's boat probably didn't stop at the most suitable position, and all he could see was a cliff. After taking the equipment, Luogu jumped onto the cliff, and then there was a jungle. Where is the promised village? Luogu paced slowly, crossing from one end of the forest to the other, and the moment he walked out of the forest, he saw a person. That person also saw Luogu. The two looked at each other, and after a while, the person opposite said, "Pirate. Aren't you afraid?" Luogu also looked at the man in front of him in surprise. It's a girl. Not very old, 15 or 16, 16 or 17 are possible. Half-length hair, with a red headband, is more eye-catching is the tattoo on the body, the pattern wrapped around the arm, and spread to the chest. What's there to be afraid of? The girl glanced at Luogu and shook her head. Leave here, this is not the place for unknown pirates like you to come. Once found by that person, they won't care what your identity is, they will kill you directly of. Oh, so unreasonable. Luogu asked with a smile, then can you tell me where they are? Are you here to find them? The girl frowned, feeling even worse, and casually pointed in a direction, over there. Just by looking at her careless look, Luogu knew that this was nonsense. At the moment, he could only sigh and said, I really want to know where they are, so, can you tell me? Also, I must declare that I am not a pirate. If you're not a pirate, are you still a navy? The girl muttered in a mature tone, this village hasn't been logged in by a navy for many years. I'm not a navy either, Luogu said, I'm a pirate hunter. I heard that there's an Aran domain nearby, and there's a dragon pirate group, so I'm going to let them enrich my money bag. What do you think? The girl blinked, then stretched out her hand to touch Luogu's forehead, and let it go after a while. It's not hot, you're not sick. Sorry, I wasted my time. Luogu sighed, he came here to play with Aaron, not to waste time with a girl. So after looking at the surrounding environment, he chose a direction that was completely different from what the girl pointed at just now. Wait. A girl's voice came from behind. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate's Bounty, Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 46. So, you're really a pirate hunter? Yes, Shung. So, are you really planning to capture Aaron? Yes. So, you really don't want to go back alive? Luogu put down his teacup, and looked helplessly at the girl in front of him, Nyokijeo. When I came to Keikiasi village, the first person I met was Nami's sister, which Luogu didn't expect. This is a kind girl, there is no doubt about it. It's just that kind people seem to have a common problem, that is, they basically don't have much confidence in the protagonist. Now the girl invited herself to her home and made tea for herself, but she didn't seem to intend to tell Luogu where Aaron's domain was. And at this moment she stood up, really, one or two, always so self-righteous. Are you talking about yourself? Luogu asked with squinted eyes. It's you, Nyokijeo said. Do you know who Aaron is? What kind of existence is the evil dragon pirate group he leads? It's not that I haven't seen a pirate hunter, but as long as none of the pirate hunters who came with Aaron's head can survive the sunset. I don't think you are very old, so I kindly advise you not to die. Why is it so difficult? It's because I've seen a lot, so I don't have confidence. Luogu smiled, then now is a good opportunity, I think, I can help you regain your confidence. I really don't know where your confidence comes from. Nyokijeo sighed deeply. In short, after drinking this cup of tea, leave here. Don't go to the village, let alone a dragon realm. There is the death hunting ground for people like you. A hunting ground? Luogu pursed his lips and smiled shyly. Okay. Okay, Nyokijeo thought he heard it wrong. Luogu said with a smile, after drinking the tea, I will leave. While speaking, he leaned his back on the chair to make himself more comfortable. Looking out the window, he could see an orange grove outside, a great orange grove. Yes, Nakajeo breathed a sigh of relief. This is our treasure. Us, Luogu looked around. You are the only one here. It has nothing to do with you. Nyokijeo didn't intend to introduce Luogu. Luogu smiled and said, well, anyway, it's tea, tell me about Aaron's domain. Nyokijeo glanced at Luogu, and then sat down. There is nothing to say. That year, they came here and began to rule here. It is said that there is nothing to say, but in fact, once the chatterbox is opened, this girl can talk a lot. What should be said and what should not be said. After all the black tea in Luogu's cup was finished, he put down the cup and said with a smile, thank you. You bastard. Nyokijeo was a little dumbfounded. You don't look like a pirate hunter at all. What kind of pirate hunter do you imagine? Very rude guy, of course, pirates are even more rude. Nyokijeo said, people like you should have grown up in a safe environment, right? Believe me, this world is very cruel. You have said so much, you should also know that the dragon pirates really kill people without blinking an eye. So, if you want to play the game of pirate hunter, you can go to other places. Well, I see. Luogu stood up. Then, it's time to say goodbye. Goodbye. By the way, I haven't told you my name yet. Luogu turned around and said with a smile. Name? Nyokijeo glanced at Luogu. He was not interested in his name at all, but seeing that this guy finally gave up the idea of going to Aaron's domain, he asked in a flattering way, you, what is your name? Noros Rogu. Luogu smiled and said, you can keep this name in your heart carefully. TCH. Nyokijo rolled his eyes, why should I remember your name? Luogu looked at the sky and said softly, as you please. What? Find a reason as you like, Luogu said with a smile. It could be because the sky is blue, the water is clear, the oranges are sweet, the person is beautiful, whatever. In short, remember this name. After finishing speaking, he pressed the handle of the knife that pressed Hiwin, and gradually left. What the hell reason? Nyokijo looked helplessly at the disappearance of Luogu's back, and muttered after a while, however, it is acceptable to say that I am beautiful, Noros Rogu, I always feel that it sounds familiar. After leaving Nyokijo's house, Luogu set off towards Aaron's domain. That's right, when a person's chatterbox is opened, everything that should be said and should not be said is indeed said, including where Aaron's domain is. This made Luogu realize one thing, sometimes you just need to give others some room to play, and you can get the answer you want. The journey was uneventful, and no one came out to stop him. Along the way, he also looked at the villagers in Kokoyashi village. Overall, it is a very peaceful village. There are also the smiles that everyone should have on their faces, but in the depths of these smiles, everything seems to be shrouded in a shadow. A village ruled by pirates. A smile appeared on the corner of Luogu's mouth. Aaron's domain is right in front of him. Nojigo. An uncle's voice came from outside the door. Nyokijo smiled, turned over a clean cup, and filled it with black tea. The uncle, who was dressed as a security guard but with a windmill on his head, rushed in a hurry, rushed to the teacup like a vicious dog, and gulped it down in one gulp. Alive. The middle-aged uncle slumped in the chair, his face upturned and covered with mottled scars. Really, Aegean, you are almost ready, right? No matter how old you are still working so hard. Nyokijo refilled the teacup. Why must I be taught a lesson by you? Police officer Aegean glanced at Nyokijo, then patted himself on the face, and she's a bad girl. Speaking of this, he suddenly noticed the cup on the table. Has anyone been here? Well, I met a strange guy today. Nyokijo smiled. A man. Aegean was taken aback. Let me tell you, even if you are a bad girl, you can't hand yourself over to a man of unknown origin. I don't want to have to help you look after the child in 2 years. What nonsense are you talking about? Nyokijo's forehead was throbbing with veins. It's a young pirate hunter who said he wanted to defeat Aaron. Pirate hunter, Aegean sighed, the sea is not calm recently. Speaking of pirate hunters, there is one who is really powerful recently. By the way, have you read the newspaper? That one is called Nyo, the guy from Los Rogu caught 2 big pirates with a bounty of over 10 million, if such a guy can come to us, Nyokijo. What's wrong with you? Pirates' bounty don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 47. Knock knock. Knock knock. Luogu is knocking on the door. It was the door of Aaron's domain that was knocking. Of course, some unhappiness might have happened before knocking on the door. But these unpleasant things have passed, that's what the pirates of the Dragon Pirates all over the place said. You don't even open the door. Luogu felt a little unhappy. He came and knocked on the door. As a pirate hunter, he was so polite, but why were these pirates still so careless? Sighing, Luogu picked up the Alrita brand iron stick. No matter what Alrita is, anyway, Luogu really likes her iron stick. Swing, hammer. With a loud bang, the door suddenly exploded. All the members in Aaron's domain turned their attention to the gate together, with an expression of astonishment on everyone's face. Obviously, faced with this sudden situation, they were a little confused. In the smoke and dust, Luogu dispersed the surrounding dust and mist, walked in step by step, and glanced at the current environment. There are still a lot of people. A smile appeared on the corner of Luogu's mouth. Under a building that is at least 6 or 7 stories high, A group of humanoid creatures that are different from humans are either lazy or bored together. What Luogu could see right in front of him was a pergola with a recliner under it, and a guy with a long sawtooth nose was lying on the chair. Beside the long nose are two cyan-skinned guys, one with a long and protruding mouth, and the other looks rather muscular. It's full of 4 lines of characters. Luogu sighed, then spread his hands and said, "I knocked on the door." The people present seemed to have not recovered from this sudden shock. Only the man with a jagged long nose on the recliner had a suddenly gloomy expression that could make him cry hoo. When great people talk, they don't even bother to say a word to ordinary people. Luogu smiled shyly, "My name is Noros Luogu. I am a pirate hunter. I came here to borrow your heads to enrich my wallet. I wonder if you have any objections." When the voice fell to the ground, there was no sound, and after a while, there was an uproar of laughter. Pirate hunter. An inferior human being. It's simply a matter of life and death. Throw him out quickly. During the commotion, 5 or 6 members of the dragon pirates rushed over. He didn't pay attention to teamwork and the like, so he rushed directly to Luogu. "Miscellaneous fish, don't be on camera." Luogu waved the iron rod in his hand to drive away the trajectory like flies, "but beat these pirates to pieces. It's not over." Someone roared, and dozens of numbers rushed over. "Trouble." Luogu rushed into the crowd helplessly, and when the iron rod fell, there was the sound of bones breaking. This time he didn't keep his hand. The main reason why he didn't keep his hand was because he didn't plan to load all these miscellaneous fish on board. Since the last time a boat full of pirates drifted in the sea for such a long time, Luogu got tired of it. Anyway, the big ones are the leaders, either cotters or leaders. Ordinary pirates are just adding to their heads. If there are too many of them, there are not many of them, and if there are too many of them, it is still a disaster to stay, so it is better to just let it go. Although they are all miscellaneous fish, but because the number has increased, naturally it can't be done within a few breaths. But at this time, the expressions of the 3 murlocs who were going to watch the show leisurely under the arbor have changed. The saw-toothed nose on the recliner crushed the cup in his hand to pieces with a click. "How dare you kill my compatriots?" I thought he was a newcomer who didn't know how high the sky was, but he didn't expect Luogu to be completely merciless. Wherever the iron rod fell, there was a huge force. He would either be maimed with one blow, or be beaten to death directly. It was just a matter of watching. Jagged nose, split eyes, kill him. The 2 murlocs beside him rushed out without saying a word. However, as soon as he took a step, he stopped. "Because it's over." The ground was wailing, some were dead or injured. Luogu stood on the spot, the iron rod was covered with blood. He waved his hand and said, "Where did you just say? Damn you." The burly murloc roared angrily, and had already reached Luogu's face with fists wrapped in anger. Before the punch arrives, the wind arrives first, as sharp as a knife. However, Luogu frowned, stepped slightly aside, and his fist had already missed. Looking up again, there was a water polo coming at a high speed. Immediately, he tiptoed and rolled in the air. The water polo passed through the air and hit the wall, making 2 holes in the wall. As soon as he landed, fists like raindrops came towards him. Luogu's footsteps were between square inches, or he moved sideways, or moved forward, or slid away, and occasionally lowered his head. All the fists were avoided. The long-mouthed fish spewed water balls from its mouth, like a machine gun sweeping away, and struck in a blink of an eye. Luogu grinned and said, "Murloc karate." "What?" The strong fishman was surprised. How did he know? In astonishment, his chest tightened. Luogu had already caught him, and with a flick of his hand, he threw it in front of the water polo, completely blocking Luogu. When the water polo hit, the burly murloc trembled, and his back was instantly riddled with holes. Luogu's head poked out from his side, Wow, it's inhumane for one of our own people to beat you up. Krobi. The long-mouthed Murloc shouted, filled with grief and anger, I won't let you go, Norothrago. Well, when I say this, I think you should first find out where I am. The voice came from his side. When he turned his head, what he saw was not Luogu, but an iron rod. The iron rod swept across, engulfed by the strong wind. There was a muffled sound, the long-mouthed Murloc grabbed the ground with its head, and fell unconscious. Clapping his hands, Luogu looked at the last fish-man, Sawtooth-nosed Aaron. I've heard your name all the time, and Aaron's domain has almost become a taboo in the sea, but after I actually met, I was a little disappointed. The people in Aaron's domain seem not as powerful as I thought. Yet. Aaron stood up, with his burly figure, blue skin, and sharp jagged skin. When he spoke, he showed a mouthful of fangs. Between his grin and smile, he seemed to be eating flesh and blood, which made people shudder. Just a low-class human being, that's all. You dare to come to my territory and talk nonsense. I will not kill you in one breath. I will make you endure endless pain and let you bury my compatriots with your blood. I want. A slight vibrato pierced the air suddenly, interrupting Aaron's words. Luogu didn't know when he withdrew the iron rod and took black pill in his hand. Hey, stop talking nonsense, okay? I'm not here to chat with you. Patter. With a soft bang, something fell to the ground. The two of them looked down at the same time and saw half a saw-toothed nose lying quietly on the ground. Pirate's Bounty, Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 48. Luogu and Aaron stared at the nose on the ground together. Point 1 Kanju. They're all a bit confused. In the original book, Sauron cut off Aaron's nose, but he didn't cut it off. Aaron is also very confident about his nose, saying that it is because of the constant cutting that he treats it as a treasure. But now, half of the nose is lying flat on the ground, which means leisure. Rogu was lost in thought. Sure enough, there is no such thing as constant chopping in this world. Sauron was chopping continuously at that time, probably because the injury was too heavy and the strength was too light, and secondly, it might be because the weapon he used was not sharp enough. While he was thinking here and there, Aaron over there was already crazy. My nose is damn inferior. He pricked his two claws and stared at the nose on the ground. Unexpectedly, he thought that the treasure had really been chopped off. I am going to kill you. The crazy roar was exchanged for crazy anger, and the attack like a storm swept across in an instant. Huo! Luogu's eyes lit up. It looks pretty good. The black pill in his hand changed frequently, and the collision between the fist and the blade made a crisp, rapid sound like rain hitting plantains. A mere inferior race, a mere inferior race, how dare you kill my compatriots, how dare you cut off my nose? Aaron's angry roar was accompanied by continuous bombardment with fists like a gust of wind. Each punch is heavier than the last, like an endless wave of ocean waves. How dare you? All of a sudden, Aaron took a deep breath and punched out his right fist. The huge force swept across his body in an instant with the blade, and Luogu's body flew upside down involuntarily, and hit the wall with a bang. The dust and mist filled the air, and Aaron panted slightly. I said, I won't let you die easily. What you will endure is torture you can't imagine. Ara Allah. Luogu's voice came out from the dust and mist, with a lightness in his voice, is that all? What? Aaron's face changed, the dust and mist dissipated, Luogu's figure appeared, his body was still straight, he held a knife in one hand, the tip of the knife slanted downward, and the hand holding the knife remained motionless, as firm as a rock. What a rare enjoyment! Luogu moved his wrists and neck. Since going to sea, besides training myself to exhaustion, this is the first time I feel like I have moved my muscles and bones. Come on, if that's all, I will really be disappointed. Let me see what else you are capable of. Well, at least it is better than a massage. Your current attack can only allow me to enjoy some muscle relaxation at best. Furious. Aaron's eyes were suddenly scarlet, and without further ado, his figure suddenly swooped in. Luogu stood there without moving, letting Aaron grab his shoulders, and asked calmly, "If you want to do something, I will resist." Facts have proved that Aaron didn't want to be a wall. He opened his mouth wide, full of shark teeth and fangs, and bit Luogu's neck. Hangchi. After taking one sip, Aaron was stunned. The taste was wrong. Looking sideways, a head was floating in mid-air looking at him. This shock was extraordinary, as if he had seen a ghost. Aaron was so frightened that he let go of Luogu's hand, and rolled and crawled back for a while before he came back to his senses. Devil fruit power user. The head floating in the air returned to his neck. Luogu stretched his neck and said unhappily, "It's okay to have a good fight. What's the point of biting people? By the way, you are a shark, bite people, it's your instinct, right? Asshole." Aaron was ashamed and angry at this time. However, the person in front of him had always given him the feeling of physical and sword skills. Who knew that he suddenly performed a flying head technique? Without preparation, he was completely frightened. Now that I have come back to my senses, I just feel ashamed and angry. Suddenly, a punch hit the wall of the building next to him. There was a loud explosion, and a hole was opened in the wall. Aaron's hand went deep into the gap in the wall, and he pulled out a large weapon with a flick of his hand. With a sharp, jagged long knife, Aaron held the knife high in both hands, jumped up, and slashed at Luogu. Oh! Luogu looked up and sighed. When the saw blade fell, he took a step to the right. Not too many steps, not too many steps, just right to get out of Aaron's attack. With a loud bang, the saw blade fell to the ground, and it just hit the edge of Luogu's left foot. Luogu stepped on the back of the saw blade with his left foot. When Aaron's scarlet eyes saw this foot, he thought something was wrong in his heart, and tried hard with both hands, but the saw blade did not move at all. Immediately using both hands to support, the body stood upside down, and with a flick of the two legs, it was like two whips that were drawn towards Luogu's head. Luogu's left arm flew out suddenly, blocking the attack of the two legs. The right hand holding the black pill was raised, the blade fell, and half of Aaron's head flew out. With a wave of his hand, the blood on Haywan fell to the ground, and then the blade returned to its sheath. But Luogu's face was a little confused. It wasn't until there was a click and the sword light was completely closed that he looked at Aaron's body and muttered to himself, "Why did he get beaten to death?" Looking down at his black pill again, he covered his face. "I thought it was an Alrita iron rod. I got used to using sticks, and almost forgot that I was actually a swordsman." Just now, he planned to knock on the forehead, but it turned out that it was not an iron rod but a black pill. The sharpness of the knife, coupled with Luogu's strength, struck him on the forehead with one strike, and it cut off half of his head. Luogu was extremely sad for a moment. The pirate who was directly killed could only be given half of the bounty. Kill Jagged Aaron and get 10 million Baileys. Special bounty is distributed, please pay attention to check. Luogu didn't even bother to check for any special rewards, he just felt that his chest was so congested that he couldn't breathe. 10 million. And Aaron has so many skills. For example, the ability to regenerate a mouthful of teeth after a tooth falls out, so you won't be afraid of being knocked out when you fight in the future. Unfortunately, now that the person is dead, it is estimated that only one skill can be obtained. Sorrow. Luogu looked at Aaron's body sadly, then found a rope in Aaron's domain, and tied up the burly Murloc Kribi and the long-mouthed Murloc Jew. There is no hunter card to arrest for the time being, so there is only one crow in the cell now. He originally planned to throw Aaron in, but Aaron died. Thinking of this, Luogu sighed again sadly, and tied Aaron's feet with the rope, strung the three fishmen into a string, and walked out dragging the rope. As for that half of the head, who cares? Luogu didn't know how to store human heads, so he reluctantly carried the body with him. After all, if he didn't bring the body, who would give him the money? Should I learn the technology of human head storage in the future? After Luogu said this, he almost slapped himself. You can't use the knife as a stick in the future, sang Xian. Under the ruins, the sad man leaves with his prey. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate's Bounty, Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 49. Quick, quick. On the road leading to Aaron's territory, police officer Ajian was running wildly. No Gjo, did you really read that right? Is it really the guy who claims to be the strongest pirate hunter in the past 20 years who came to our village? Why do you follow me if you don't believe me? Nakajao asked as he ran. The two of us are going to Aaron's domain now. If that hunter is still alive, we must stop him and not let him in. While running, Ajian said, if he goes in, you will wait outside in a while and let me figure out a way. All in all, we can't let that guy have an accident. Nyaki was stunned for a moment. So, what are we here for? Why, Ajian looked back at Nakajao, if that guy is really the most powerful pirate hunter in the East China Sea in the past 20 years, it means that he has the potential to defeat Aaron. But now, it's too early, it's too urgent, he needs time. Nyokijao suddenly fell silent. Ajian asked, what's wrong with you? Look, over there. Nyokijao pointed to the distance. Ajian was taken by Nyokijao's tone, and he was very nervous when he turned around, for fear that he would see the young hunter's body. But when he turned around, what he saw was a mess everywhere. On the ground in the distance, blood spread, and the Murloc pirates either lay in the pool of blood and made painful noises, or remained motionless and breathless. The gate of Aaron's domain has disappeared, and a huge hole is silently telling his own desolation. The faces of Ajian and Nyokijao both turned pale. After looking at each other, they nodded together again, and speeded up to the door of Aaron's domain. At the hole in the door, he became cautious again, looking inside with his head poking around. It's still a mess. What the hell happened here? Nyokijao gasped, and took 2 steps inside. The soles of her feet were already covered in blood. Most of these guys are still alive. Ajian checked one by one. Some were dead, and some were still alive and breathing, but they had obviously lost all fighting ability. Was this all done by one person? It's the scene of a massacre. Suddenly, Ajian's pupils shrank suddenly, and his whole body trembled uncontrollably. Ajian, what's wrong with you? Nyokijao asked quickly. Aaron. Ajian stretched out his finger and pointed to the ground, where half of his head was still oozing blood. The blood mixed with the blood of all the Murlocs seemed to be the same, but it was extra glaring. Nyokijao looked in the direction Ajian pointed and saw it too. Half a head, or half a face. Just looking at the eyes on that half of the face, the ferocity of the canthus tearing apart, one can imagine how fierce he was before he died. And yet, he died. We, liberated. Nyokijao looked at Ajian in a daze. Before today, they had imagined more than once what it would be like to liberate Kokoyashi village from Aaron's hands. There are various possibilities. Nami has been working hard to liberate Kokonishi village, or Nami succeeded, or the navy came and drove away Aaron and his group. However, no matter what kind of imagination, I never imagined that it would be like this. A hunter came, without a sound. A hunter left and Aaron died. In the end, without anyone realizing it, they were already free. Noros Rogu. The moment Nyokijao was muttering to himself, he suddenly felt his heart tighten, as if he had been hit in the heart by this name. Noros Rogu, you can keep this name in your heart carefully. The man's words came to my ears again. At that time, I was dismissive, and I didn't care much about other things except praising myself for being beautiful. However, at this moment, the name was suddenly imprinted deeply like a brand mark, and no matter what, it could not be erased. He is not the most powerful hunter in the East China Sea in the past 20 years at all. He is simply the most powerful hunter in the East China Sea in history. Ajian glanced at Nyoki Jao, and suddenly stretched his arms. We are liberated. Find him. Nyoki Jao suddenly jumped up. We can't let our benefactor just leave here without a sound. Correct. Ajian quickly said, hurry back to the village, we must control the remaining living guys, tell everyone what happened in Aaron's domain, and then find our benefactor, Noros Rogu. Let all of us in Kokoyasi village remember this name together and make this day our celebration. It is good. Ah. Luogu rubbed his nose. According to the usual flow of novels, if a person who cannot catch a cold suddenly sneezes, it is obviously because someone is talking about me. They went to Aaron's domain. Looking back, it was nothing more than a wild guess. He smiled and didn't care about anything. With a wave of his hand, he threw the two people in his hand and a corpse onto the big boat. Of course, you can't walk through the city with a dead body. When Luogu came back, he didn't choose to walk through Kokoyasi village, but went around outside. Perhaps it was precisely because of this that they staggered with Nyoki Jao. With a little foot, Luogu jumped into the boat. Throw the prisoner in the prison with the Catman brothers, and then go up to adjust the sails and pull the anchor. While dealing with these, I still didn't forget to ponder, speaking of which, the Cat brothers are cats and Krubai and that Chu are fish. There won't be a battle named after food between them, right? Before he could think clearly about this question, Luogu noticed that there were violent waves under the water. There are also 4 lines of characters floating through the water surface, fluttering and undulating. In a short while, the water waves suddenly shot up into the sky, and a huge monster jumped out of the water. It's hard to say what kind of thing this thing is. It looks quite ferocious, and it has 2 horns, but no matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem to be fierce. And on this guy's head, there is a strange guy standing. With 6 hands and suckers all over the arms, it probably looks like an octopus has become a spirit. He hugged his 6 arms and glared at Luogu, take mine. As soon as the words were said here, they suddenly stopped. When his eyes met Luogusan's cold eyes, for some reason, he didn't have the courage to say the next words. The whole body is like being pierced by ice, and a fear that can freeze the soul arises spontaneously. Roll. Luogulanson spoke. Okay. The huge monster sank into the water together with the murloc on its head, and disappeared without a trace in an instant. After they left, Luogu patted his forehead. It seems that something strange has been let go, Zioba. Pirate's bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 50. The boat was sailing on the sea, and Luogu was sitting under a sun umbrella on the deck, reading a book. In the town where he met Johnny and Joseph before, he bought a lot of books, all as entertainment during the long journey. At the same time, the stories in the book can let Luogu understand the world better. Although he has been in this world for 3 years, his understanding of the sea and this world is still limited to Moon Village and anime. There are many stories in the book. There are all kinds of things emerging one after another, and Luogu can't tell which ones are real and which ones are the fantasy products of the author's imagination. At least, it can relieve boredom. Squeezing between his eyebrows, Luogu put down the book in his hand and picked up the drink next to him. The red translucent liquid looks like watermelon juice. But in fact, this is not, it is a kind of juice squeezed from the fruit of the snail, which tastes sweet but not greasy. After chilling, it will be more refreshing and relieve the heat. It is really the first choice in the hot summer. But this kind of thing is a specialty of the previous town, and I don't know if it can be bought in other places. After drinking down the drink in the cup, Luogu opened the hunter's license. In addition to adding million to his wealth, he has also seen the previous special bounties. Not a big surprise, it's a skill. The name of the skill is diving. The name has completely outlined the whole picture of this skill. It is a skill that allows Luogu to swim freely underwater. With this skill, Luogu can even breathe freely in the water, take a breath, and the water pressure will not be an obstacle. The only problem is the time limit of the skill. After spending all the 2 dark iron coins he had left on him, Luogu upgraded the skill to level, which lasted 3 hours. Generally speaking, it is enough. Luogu sighed, sure enough, killing pirates directly is the least cost-effective way, even without adding black iron coins. The sea breeze blew past, calming Luogu's sorrow for killing Aaron by mistake, but it also brought a different flavor. Turning around, they saw a large ship approaching slowly. The special flags and colors, as well as the huge R on the sail, all silently told their identity. Navy. Luogu blinked, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It's useless this time. I went to look for you everywhere. It's the first time I met the Navy at sea. Immediately stood up, rummaged through boxes and boxes to find a loudspeaker, but before Luogu could speak, the Navy had already shouted, "The boat in front, stop." Luogu is good at what he does, but every time it comes to this kind of time, he is always in a hurry. It is more convenient for several people to divide and cooperate for things like stopping the ship. After tossing for a while, the boat stopped, and the Navy's boat also stopped next to Luogu's boat. The decks touched each other, and a group of Marines stepped on the rhythmic pace and came to the ship in a blink of an eye. The first person looked like a rat, wearing a cloak with the word justice written on it, and twirling a mustache like a kudu. "I am Colonel Mouse of the 16th Division of the Navy. Is this ship yours?" "Colonel Mouse?" Luogu had the impression that a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he asked, "It's mine, is there a problem?" "This ship has been requisitioned," Colonel Mouse said calmly. "From now on, this ship belongs to the 16th Navy Division. Is there any problem?" He looked at Luogu coldly. Luogu blinked. "Requisition? Ask, why do you want to requisition? Do you need to catch pirates?" Colonel Mouse Lang Sen's eyes flashed past Luogu, and then nodded deeply. "I see the words on your sail, it should be a pirate hunter, right? If that's the case, then I won't hide it you, our group is about to go to the most evil area in the East China Sea to capture the most terrifying pirate in the East China Sea. Therefore, your ship is temporarily requisitioned." "Amazing." Luogu clapped his hands, and then asked, "The most evil area in the East China Sea, isn't it Aaron's domain? Since you also know Aaron's domain, stop talking nonsense and hand over the boat to me." Colonel Mouse is a little angry. Why does this guy talk so much nonsense? "I passed by chance and saw that this ship is not bad, and it belongs to a pirate hunter, so it's fine to snatch it. But if the Navy is robbing something, can that be said to be robbing? It's expropriation. Anyway, such a pirate hunter, as long as he hears the name of Aaron's domain and the evil dragon pirate group, he will be scared to death, and there will definitely be no twists and turns. As for the ship in your hands, the other party will come to ask for it? How can it be? Either it was damaged, or it was said that it was destroyed and sent to Marlin Fodor for repair. Who can prove that what Colonel Mouse said was a lie? If you have the guts, go to Malinford to ask the truth." It turns out that he really went to Aaron's field. Luogu smiled and said, "But if you go there, I guess you really can't requisition my boat." "Huh? How dare you disobey my order?" Colonel Mouse was furious, and the sailors behind him were also on edge. Luogu shook his head and said, "That's not what it means, just wait a moment, Just a moment. With that said, Luogu turned and entered the cabin. Colonel Mouse stood there with a dazed face, looked around, and muttered, "Could it be that he ran away? Colonel, our people are all here. Unless he can dive under the water, he will definitely not be able to escape." A Navy confidant whispered beside him, "But he seems to be the only one on this ship." Alone, Colonel Mouse's eyes changed, and the stern light flickered. How dare a single person use such a big boat? Wait a while, and if he dares to talk nonsense again, just throw him into the sea. The Navy behind them immediately geared up, and it was obviously not a good idea for the Navy to follow Colonel Mouse. Just at this moment, the door of the cabin opened, and Luogu was walking with a rope in his hand while pulling it out. "Speaking of which, I am still worried about how to find you. After all, this guy is on my boat. Put it for too long, you can't keep letting it rot, right? You will definitely not admit it. I was worried at first, but I didn't expect to meet him in the vast sea. It is also a kind of fate. Come on, take a look at this guy, is Aaron, right?" When the voice fell, Luogu pulled the rope, and there was a muffled bang, and a corpse was thrown in front of Colonel Mouse and the others. With a ferocious half face and a burly body, even if he is dead, the ferocious aura emanating from his body has not restrained in the slightest, but has become more ferocious. Colonel Mouse only saw his anus muscles tightening, and without saying a word, he knelt down with a bang.